With 2018 being a year full of cultural appropriation and racial injustice, you would think that companies and organizations would do a better job with their advertisements and how they want their messages perceived and how people can interpret things wrong. So you think they'd have a more diverse team and thinking of different ways and different advertisements. But instead, in 2018, we had a couple of bad ones. We had Heineken come out with the lighter is better ad. We had Gucci and Gabbana come out with an Italian. This Chinese woman was eating Italian food with chopsticks and she was having a huge problem. And now we have H&M with this little black boy who's in a green sweatshirt that says coolest monkey in the jungle. And the black community just did not like that at all, which you can't blame them. And so, with all of this going on, with this cultural appropriation and this racial injustice and racism all over the United States right now, you would think that people will do a better job of double checking what they're putting out there. So, for my theoretical analysis, I wanted to work with H&M and their blackface scandal, which once again involved that young black boy who was in that green hoodie that said coolest monkey in the jungle. After all the racial injustice and racial advertisements, you'd think that H&M would be more careful what they put out and how they wanted their ads to be perceived. So I decided that all this came from a lack of understanding and maybe a lack of diversity in their office or in their team. So with a lack of understanding through their communicative efforts, I decided I wanted to use the Habermas theory of communicative action, which would help us find validity, trust, truthfulness, and legitimacy within the messages that we want them to perceive. So, to begin using that process, we have to start by answering a couple questions. So, one would be what was the intended sender message, which I'm sure H&M was just trying to perceive or wanting to send out a message of here is some clothes, because not only was there a little black boy, there was a little white boy in an orange sweatshirt that said something about a survival expert. So maybe if flopping the sweatshirts would have done a huge change. You never know. And maybe that was the message. Maybe the message was that they were trying to be more diverse. And that got lost somewhere in the communication. So the second question would be, how does the receiver interpret the message? The receiver interpreted the message not very well, as we see. They interpreted it as a lack of respect towards the black community. What barriers cause the misunderstanding? I really think that just the time in the United States right now would be a huge barrier for us. This type of barrier means we have to walk on eggshells no matter what your ad is or who you're talking to. You have to really be careful and really understand their culture and make sure you interpret that into everything. And then, is deception a consideration of either party? I don't believe that we are trying to, on the sender's side, I don't believe that we are trying to communicate something that is deceitful. And I don't believe that the receiver is trying to create a deceitful message as well. They're not trying to manipulate it. So once you try and figure out all those questions, you have to be able to build legitimacy. And I really think that's a huge thing, because we do have validity, we have trust. Maybe not on this message, maybe we did lose a little bit, but we have truthfulness. And I think the biggest problem would be legitimacy, which is the biggest error that we're going to have in the Habermas theory of communicative action. So the last thing you want to do is for people to interpret that you are trying to come up with this huge PR attempt. You don't want people to see that, oh, they had this racial injustice, they had this racist ad, and now they're only including black people in their ads. You want people to see that you're starting small and building up, that you aren't trying to just cover up your tracks. You're trying to actually build and grow from what happened. So making sure that you start small is what's going to be huge. Start by taking down all the ads. I think that's a huge step. And then keep what you're doing with including black people with your white people in your ads, but make it double check the clothing that they're wearing or the clothing that you're actually advertising. I don't think that sweatshirt should be advertised at all. And then also building a team a more diverse team. That way you can foreshadow and figure out what is going to happen with your ads and gain new perspectives on different advertisements and different ways of doing things. So I think by doing those three things, I think we will figure out a way to build on this and move forward. But yeah.